Hello and welcome to Campaign Comrades, your favorite leftist gaming podcast. We are covering the game Control this week, and our new director, if you will, for this episode is Andrew. He is taking up the handgun, the object of power. He has put it to my brain and has blown it all over the carpets and is now taking on the leadership role.
What great imagery. I wish.
Yeah, but first he had to go through a little cube puzzle.
Yeah, I've been ritualistically murdered so that the next of you can take your rightful place at the top of our intricate government bureaucracy.
And similar to Jesse, he was completely unprepared and unwilling and unknowing of what he was doing.
yeah. Like this is the first he's learning of this.
Yes, I reluctantly pick up the service weapon and accept my role as director of the FBC, the Federal Bureau of Control. You know what it is. We're talking about Remedy Entertainment's 2019 game Control. Was released on, I believe, pretty much all of the consoles at the initial launch. They did have an exclusive deal with Epic.
I don't know how you can say all of the consoles.
That's
and
fun.
I don't think a Nintendo Switch could run this game.
It would melt it. It would melt.
Okay.
It would melt the Nintendo Switch.
Sorry, the big boy consoles.
How dare you?
Shots of the service weapon fired.
Yeah. Nintendo just like canceled us.
Mario got shooters too.
I'm looking up to see if it is on Switch. I don't think it is.
No way. It literally would melt it. It for sure would melt it.
That.
No,
I think
it's there.
It's
cloud
hilarious.
version. It's the cloud version. So there you go.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, you can only
my
play it
Steam
via
Deck was
cloud.
struggling for a bit too.
Well, my Steam Deck
play it.
initially tried to render it in 1080p, and it was like a 5 frames per second slideshow. And my battery monitor was like, you were like excessively using power.
Warning.
Danger, Will Robinson.
You're going to turn the Steam Deck into a new object of power. It will be an altered world event.
Yeah. Exactly. The Steam Deck is now an object of power.
What do you think the Steam Deck?
We got Remedy Entertainment.
Quickly, what do you think the Steam Deck's its object of power abilities would be?
That's a good one.
Go invisible.
Just like couch lock.
Invisible.
Yeah, I was gonna say something to do with sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like, so you could like play games anywhere and like no one could see you.
I mean, when you're a degenerate gamer,
I like the couch lock idea too.
If you're a degenerate gamer, people are just ignoring you to begin with, so you're already invisible. If you go outside,
you get this repulsive smell aura that just permeates you, and enemies can't get in.
Like Pigpen.
It is funny because when I use my Steam Deck in the break room at work, people usually like sit on the opposite side of the break room.
Yeah.
They know.
But when I use it in my cube,
it's peak antisocial behavior. We love it.
Yeah, that's even more antisocial than aggressively like scrolling your phone. Just like, no, I'm gaming. This is serious. Yeah. Plugged into the Matrix.
I wish.
So Remedy Entertainment, founded in 1995. They're a Finnish game developer.
We love the Finns.
They've developed titles. We do love the Finns. They make great art. I will always enjoy
and good smoked or pickled fish.
And just like architecture and furniture.
Yeah.
Hey, I think I sent it to you guys, and if I didn't,
don't give them too much credit.
They have a drying rack that is your cabinet above the sink. So no fucking drying rack.
That's basically what I have. That's basically what I have, but that's because I don't have cupboards.
Exactly, but it's enclosed in the Finnish one. It's based. I love it. New York needs to adopt it because there's no dishwashers there.
So you heard it here first. We are all Finnish build officially.
Except for on the architecture part, I'm still not with you there.
Fine. Just the sink drying rack thing that I very much enjoyed.
The efficiency and modularity
Yes.
that they
There you
bring
go.
to
There
design.
you go.
I think you're thinking of the
top-notch.
Swedes there.
Yeah.
They're the same. It's the same.
Yeah, well, it's all the same.
They all have breakfast cake that has shrimp
They're
and
all
mayo on
the
it
Arctic Circle.
and like eggs. So like they're all the
This
same.
episode is off to a rousing start, folks. We're insulting so many different cultures.
It's fine. They're all white cultures, so it's good.
It's allowed. So yeah, the Finns. They founded Remedy Entertainment 1995.
This was their third game.
They
right?
released their first games were the Max Payne.
was one of their like claim to fame, because then
this is their fourth. They got the 2 Max Paynes and then Alan Wake. Actually, it's the 5th.
Yeah.
They had 2 Max Paynes, they did Alan Wake, and then they did Quantum Break. And then after Quantum Break was when they began Control. Remedy went public in 2016, and that was when they began the development cycle of Control. They really wanted to target a more efficient development process, and they were able to complete Control in just about 3 years, with it releasing in 2019.
we talk about that really. Can we talk about that really quick?
Was a significant
is that they had previously had like an exclusive publishing deal with Microsoft, and I
yes,
the hater in me just loved to see that bit of information, that being a part, even though they weren't,
They
like,
shed the shackles of their oppressor.
Their corporate oppressors. It's like they weren't like technically like a first party studio. It was like just an exclusive deal, but like they talk about how having that control looming over them really affected their ability to put out quality content.
Weird. All of a sudden, all the metaphors in Control make a little more sense.
Is that it took you, as you just said, it took them 3 years as opposed to like 5 or 7 and 5 for Alan Wake and Quantum Break, but also like under $30 million, which is pretty nuts for a AAA game. And and this all, so basically it's like they were more efficient both in time spent, hours, no crunch, and money spent by simply being independent.
Are they?
They also put out
unionized?
a free update patch
I don't
for
think
the
so.
next gen consoles. Just free of charge to anyone who had the PS4 or the Xbox One version. And it was notably one of the better looking PS5 or Xbox Series gen games at that point.
Wasn't it the first to like use the ray tracing?
Well,
It was
one of, if not the first.
It was
Yeah.
pioneering in ray tracing.
Yeah.
Because it was one of the first ray tracing games that actually played at a playable frame rate when you turned on ray tracing. I just like pissed off all the people who were like, ray tracing is fine at 18 frames per second.
It was it was the first major title, at least according to Wikipedia, the first major title with nearly full implementation of the all available NVIDIA RTX,
Which is why the Steam Deck hates it.
The Steam Deck is AMD, is that right?
Pretty much all of the handhelds are AMD.
Proprietary AMD partnerships. Yeah.
Well, because AMD also does the chipsets for the consoles, so
Yeah.
it allows for an easier development for a one-to-one console to handheld.
And yeah, Ben, you make a great point about not only could I not find anything related to them having to crunch or abuse their workers more than most the
standard
daily abuse that you endure.
I mean, they're finished, so
Yeah,
they
but,
obviously had their 2:00 smoked fish break.
Yeah, some nice smoked fish and crackers got them through the process, and I was really impressed by the budget on this game. $30 million is a really, this isn't that long ago, and comparing to the other major titles we see released nowadays, that's like
200
a
million.
quarter of the budgets that we're seeing now. Yeah, it is a really efficient cost, and they made a ton of money. They sold over 3 million copies as of 2022, and that resulted in over 90 million of revenue. So you can do the math. That's a pretty significant margin comparing to their costs.
Yeah, but it could have been 95
Remedy partnered.
if they had added
Yeah.
microtransactions. Like, what
Yeah,
if I could?
they sold some.
What if I could pay to unlock new objects of power?
Or
Boom.
just pay for some new clothes for Jesse.
Yeah, exactly. Which is actually an interesting thing that you bring up there, Mike. I was doing some research, and I apparently when they made the Ultimate Edition, which is the version that was released for the PS5 and new consoles, they removed outfits that Jesse had, and they also removed a fun little Easter egg, which is a side quest that has the one and only
Nude scene?
and now I'm gonna forget his no, not nude scene. Hideo Kojima plays a minor role and has you enter into what
Do they have the
and
Kojima soul stealing device as an object of power?
they don't. He's purely that would be awesome. Fuck, that is a missed opportunity.
Imagine if it was
but
real.
they pulled it from the right. Imagine, probably is. It is actually the first object of power is Hideo Kojima soul stealing device. But in the game, he is a doctor. He voices. You don't see him. It's just a voiceover, and he guides you through this meditation that I actually watched the scene, and it's all about love, and he sets you on this beach. It's a meditation, and then there's trees, and the trees love each other, and you're supposed to love the trees, but a bulldozer comes along, and you have to stop the bulldozer and save the trees, and it's very Kojima, and I thought I was Ferngully, exactly. I was sad that we didn't get to experience that I believe we all probably played the Ultimate Edition. I wouldn't have expected you to find the initial.
The thing about the outfits was weird because that tab was always there, and you don't unlock. I think in the course of my playthrough, I unlocked 2 other outfits. One at the very.
That's all that there is.
There's one that I met. I guess I unlocked 3, but I think I'd seen that there's another one. That I saw online and never came across. Maybe it was part of the DLC that I didn't play. But you unlock a director, full on suit. You unlock a janitor's outfit and the subject P7, the sweatsuit. Those are the ones.
Yeah. Those are the only ones I unlocked.
When I got it, I was immediately rocking the janitor outfit.
I mean, the janitor is the most Finnish representation in the game.
Yes.
I want to talk about
the legend
Ahti at some point.
Absolutely. That is on my list. So let's just dive in. I did want to call out the publisher is the Italian publisher 505 Games, and their first success is Cooking Mama. So that's who we're dealing with here in terms of publisher, and they have committed to funding the sequel Control 2, which I don't know if it has a timeline yet, but they are working on it, and they have a $50 million budget.
How long did it take for them to put out fucking Alan Wake 2 that's coming out in a month? Which is another thing I want to go back to the whole Microsoft thing.
Yeah,
they were never going to let them put out Alan Wake 2. Everybody was clamoring for give us a sequel to Alan Wake, and Microsoft was like, nah, fuck that. And then it took them going independent again to be able to put out a sequel.
So, I mean, the Alan Wake turnaround then is only about 3-4 years from them going independent when they had the opportunity to, release Alan Wake
at
2.
least from when this was published. Yeah, it's about 4 years.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Right,
exactly.
This was 2019, so
Yeah. So, I mean, think of them having finished Control and then they go into Alan Wake. I'm sure, they're a small studio. I'm sure they're not running 2 different games, development full steam.
from my
at
understanding
the
of
same
Alan
time.
Wake 2 is like they had a lot of stuff just like kicking around and like tried to do stuff for quite a while, but like it never really went anywhere. And you could all count that shit as like pre-production, right?
Yeah,
Which games run that kind of or game studios run that kind of stuff
always.
going in the background all the time. But yeah, in terms of like concerted full-on production, yeah, we're probably talking 3 or less years because they came out, Control came out in 2019. They were still putting out DLC for it. They were doing obviously the Ultimate Edition and all that stuff. So full on exclusively working on Alan Wake, yeah, like probably like 3 years max.
So not a bad turnaround necessarily, and hope that we could see Control in the next few years. Control 2.
Yeah, I would love to. I will definitely be returning to the
As much
Bureau.
as the
I'm
game made
fully-
me feel very bad while playing it, I would probably play a sequel too.
All right, so that's some of the background on the publisher, the development cycle. We could kind of jump to the game itself. So, quick synopsis of our storyline. We have our protagonist, the wonderful Jessie Hayden. She shows up to a very formidable looking building, which I do want to talk about some of the setting and game design, but we'll get to that. And that is the Federal Bureau of Control. She's greeted by the previously mentioned Ati and essentially immediately thrown into her new role as director of the Bureau when she picks up the former director's service weapon.
You gloss over the fact that
she
it's
learns
picking up the
about
pistol held in the hand of a man who looks like he just killed himself.
And then immediately has to pass a Russian
Yeah.
roulette of her own. That's how they decide. That's how the enigmatic board decides if she's worthy or not. Because it just goes through this sequence where she's got the pistol pointed at her head. I do love that they refer to it as the service weapon. It just makes me just like, yeah, what is the cure to male
Mhm.
loneliness? Grabbing an officer's service weapon.
More people should be doing that.
It'll cure you of all your ills.
I'm closer and closer every day.
It'll surely put an end to all your woes and misfortunes in one way or another.
Yes, fairly quickly as well. So she shows up, she becomes the director. She learns that the board is trying to stop an invasion from this extra-dimensional entity Jessie lovingly calls the hiss, because that's kind kind of the sound and noise they make, which is very unsettling, particularly at the beginning of the game, in my opinion.
The naming convention was a little on the nose for me.
Yeah, the name.
Some of the characters in the game kind of make fun of her for it too.
I agree.
It is like
okay.
toddler level naming. It's like, what do you want to name this dog? Bark. No.
Roof.
Roof. So Jessie continues to kind of hunt down the hiss, and she goes through these Metrovania style puzzles of the layout of the building, as the building is constantly changing, kind of Harry Potter-esque with moving stairwells. But in this case, like, the rooms essentially all transform and move, and that adds to the puzzling nature of the gameplay. So from there, we find out that Jessie's at the Bureau looking for her long-lost brother, Dylan. They experienced a paranatural event, as children that resulted in all of their adults in their town randomly disappearing.
Lovingly
the
named
Bureau captures
Ordinary.
her brother.
The town of Ordinary.
Ordinary.
Not so
Yes,
not so
Ordinary
ordinary
Maine.
anymore.
I would love to see the original Finnish and like what the translations of those words are, the direct translations, rather than what they
I think they're
change it into.
intentionary. They're intentional.
Yeah.
Like they I don't
Yeah,
think
no,
that
I
they're
don't doubt it,
necessarily
but-
developing this in Finnish and then translating it from there.
That's fair. That's fair. But I would love to hear the Finnish
I don't.
words.
Not that there isn't not that there
That's
definitely
right.
isn't
The
a
world-
Finnish
The
localization,
world
but like,
develops in my language.
but like let's be real though. Let's be real though.
Sure.
Like while there's definitely a Finnish localization, there's no way that like that is their primary market.
No, you're definitely right.
So Jessie continues on her quest to find her brother, who the Bureau has taken, and she is going through the Bureau. She finds these objects of power, which, like the service weapon, seem to be ordinary things that have been imbued with, or I don't know if that's the right word, but have these paranormal impacts and give Jessie essentially what's Jedi powers.
Better Jedi
And those
powers
get
than
unlocked
Fallen
throughout the
Order.
game. Absolutely. And we will definitely be discussing the powers. From there, you continue on this progression, unlocking powers, new abilities for the service weapon, which allows you to change how it functions. You have versions that act like a shotgun, a pistol, an automatic rifle, a sniper, so on and so
I still
forth.
ended up using the basic pistol
From there-
configuration the most.
I don't know. The shotgun's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Shotgun like had some utility for me, but like it ended up being the main pistol variant, and then you had a couple of like the more heavily powered ones. There's like a charge function and like I forget the other name of it. Pierce and charge, I guess I think were the two. Yeah, it's like one like shoots these like basically like explosive rounds, and another one is just like armor penetrating rounds.
I'd also like to shout
use
out
those against
the
the
fact
big
that
boys.
they didn't make me care about ammo.
Mm.
A beautiful
Yes.
game design moment, so that I didn't have to hoard like check every drawer in this office building for little bits of ammo and feel punished for being shite at aiming.
Yeah, I mean that I only like that in like stealth games where it's like, you're not meant to be shooting. You're not meant to be rooting and tooting and shooting, the whole time. That's just
Whereas in
supposed
this, it's just like unload, try to
survive until it regenerates, and then
Yeah.
keep on spraying and praying.
I mean, the
Use your
trick is to
Jedi
not run out
powers,
of
create some
ammo. Is that
space.
always end on one bullet, so you regen faster.
That is a good tip for people.
Another good tip for
starting out
people: if you're playing on
the
Steam
game.
Deck, turn on gyro aiming.
Is that like
No,
using
never.
literal tilt controls?
So
Oh.
you use the stick and gyro combined, so you can get the stick like 80% of the way to the head, and then just use the last little bit of like wrist flick to get the rest of the aiming. My aim improved like well over 50%. After swung
well,
on
talented
that actually
enough.
reminded me. Gyro is like on by default on the PS5 version.
Yeah,
I do remember that. I do actually remember.
Oh, shit.
I
I didn't even
it took
realize
me
that.
like I was like halfway through the game to realize that was happening.
it's one of the things that like Breath of the Wild does really well, and like Tears of the Kingdom is the aiming with both the stick and the gyro simultaneously. And once you get used to being able to do both in your brain, it becomes second nature.
See, I used to like when I started out gaming, I would very much like move the controller or the Game Boy to kind of want gyro.
Now I hate
But
it.
I trained that aspect out of myself so much that I can't do it
Same.
anymore. Like
it's too
I
many,
can't.
It's too many
You
multi-dimensional
go to do it,
inputs.
and you feel shame.
Yeah. Well, because I would get made fun of probably by you guys at some
Yeah.
point, but like other friends, like, you're like really into it and you're like moving the controller and shit. And it's like, bro, the controller doesn't move the game like that.
It's
So you
funny
just,
because
like,
the PS3 could have,
hardwire as
because
a
the
child.
PS3 controller had a gyro in it.
Well, I had Xboxes, we're playing on the
Xboxes
GameCube.
never cared about gyro.
I think it's pronounced hero.
Shut up. Been to
All
Europe
right.
once.
All right. So getting back to the plot, we'll kind of jump through the rest of this quickly. So that's kind of how the gameplay works. You're looking for these objects of power, you're unlocking additional areas of the map, you're tracking down Dylan. Jesse finally finds her long lost brother. Turns out that he's been infected by the hiss, as well as the prior director Trench, who brought the hiss into the bureau from the get-go. And Jesse has to go on a quest to kill the hiss as best as she can. What she thinks is Polaris controlling her or the hiss is unclear. It's this paranormal entity that talks to Jesse throughout the game. And ultimately, what happens is she goes through a really cool maze section, which I do want to talk about if you all have gotten
I don't think the two
towards
of
the
them
end
have,
of the
but
game.
that was like the coolest
And
section of the game by far. It's because it's the finish the
ashtray maze
the
as
finish
it's known.
tango bit, because like in order to get through this maze into like interdimensional research, Ati gives you his Walkman. It's like you need to like be listening to this thing to be able to focus your mind to go through. So she's listening to a song, and it's like got one of the best bits of scoring that the game has, and it's just like got a really fun pace to it as you're going through this like kaleidoscopically shifting. It's very much looks like I forget what the area looks like, or what it was, if it had a name in Twin Peaks, like if any of you have ever watched Twin Peaks,
Yes,
the
the
Red
Red
Room,
Room.
yes, it has very much that kind of
I've seen that
decor. And it's like kind of like a 1920s kind of Art Deco kind of style. These like checkered floors and stuff like that, but it's got that kind of aesthetic to it, but it's like shifting, because again it's the gateway to like the interdimensional research thing. So it's playing with the dimensions of this space, and you're killing a bunch of it's like killing a shit ton of enemies and making your way through, and it's like it's one of the better kind of levels of the game, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's widely regarded as the best level of the game and one of the best recent levels of gaming in general. And Ben, the song is a good thing to call out. It's called it was written by Poets of the Fall, which is a Finnish band, and it's called Take
Control. Yeah.
Control. And it's also an allusion to Alan Wake, and they use that song. This is the song for the Ashtray Maze, and Remedy actually worked with them directly to make the song dynamically, coalesce with the game in that section as you progress through the maze. So the song builds as you get further and further along, and the sound and design of that section is really fantastic. I think it's worth getting to if you've not done so, because it's really a fun gameplay.
It's one of the most.
So, anyways, Jesse gets there and
levels that you will get. That's truly on its kind of own part. Like there is the weird kind of underground fungus area, that is kind of its own self-contained level.
Yep.
And the levels where you like get the upgrades to the.
I mean, all the other ones, it's like they are technically levels, and they're actually even kind of, they are they're levels in the building. You know, it's like you go to level 1, 2, 3, 4 to the different sectors.
Yeah.
It's like you take the fucking elevator to go here, but like they don't have this distinct feeling of a level. They're just fucking different corridors. It's a bit of a maze. Andrew kind of described it correctly as like this kind of Metroidvania interlocking pathways, whereas in most specifically this interdimensional one, it's a discrete level. You can only enter from one way, and it like is tied to a specific point. It's like the one like linear level in the game that you can't access at any other time, that you can't go back to once you're done. It's like has its one discrete placement in the flow of the game, which everything else does not. It's
So yeah, I was talking about
free flowing,
and I don't know if you could go back to them, but when you would get like transported and you would
the astral
the
plane
cube world.
elements.
the cube
astral,
world. Yeah.
it's the astral
Yeah.
plane, and
Yeah.
those are, you could call them levels, but those are so short. They're like this
No, but I was saying, like, you know, that is one where they bring you out, and it's literally the same. We talked about it being better Jedi powers than Fallen Order. Literally, like, both Metroidvanias both have the same way of like unlocking the new powers that you like. In Fallen Order, you go to like memories with your master and you learn the new powers in like a level there. Whereas here you go to Picasso's cube world, and like learn your better Jedi powers and get a opportunity to train with them. It just really is disappointing how shitty the Jedi games were.
All right, Andrew, can you continue? Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So getting to the end, she finds Dylan. He's part of the Hiss. There's a battle with the head of the Hiss. Not really the head of the Hiss. I don't remember exactly.
No, the ending was like, in both in terms of plot and gameplay, was really kind of a letdown, because it's like you're going through these kind of waves of enemies, but I think they're weaker. I think they like go down in much fewer shots, if I remember correctly. It's been a little bit since I actually played the game. I played it like a month or so ago. But it's like I found it like really easy. Like there were some challenging elements of combat in some of these kind of climaxes. Most boss fights come at the end of side quests, not actual main story quests. There are a few that are tied to the main story, but like there is no final boss. You fight these just like as you progress to these like little islands.
Correct. Yeah.
You're just going through a shit ton of enemies, and they're all like you can like one shot them all. And that's what it was. Because it's like, if you try to shoot them all, they don't go down. And maybe it was just because I had over leveled my throw ability, but like I was one shotting every enemy as I'm progressing through that. I found that like that bit super easy, and then there is no final boss. It's just you get to Dylan.
Yeah. I agree. You get to Dylan. It's definitely easier in terms of compared to like other portions of the game. It did not feel like as strong a climax as we've seen with other titles, but the game ends with Jesse stopping the Hiss from fully entering the FBC, and in the process Dylan unfortunately enters into a coma, and then Jesse prevents the Hiss from escaping and fully accepts and steps into her role as the director of the FBC. And that's the ending of the full original game. They did release those 2 DLCs. One of them is called AWE and is effectively just an Alan Wake crossover that gives additional details as to how those universes are interconnected. But there's really no additional plot-driven storyline with that DLC. The other is the Foundation, which does continue from the end of the game and has Jesse exploring the foundation of the building to stop someone, it's unclear who, from destroying the nail, which allows the Bureau to access other dimensions. And in the end of that DLC, Jesse learns that the board is, obviously not great, and decides that fuck the board, I'll let them think they're in control, but I'm taking over the FBC and I'm going to run it how I want.
FBC won't
and
let
so
me
that's
be,
kind of the real
won't let me
conclusion of the
be.
game.
Eminem just keeps popping in my head every time you say FBC.
There you go. The FBC. So that's kind of the conclusion of the story of Control up to this point. I assume Control 2 will kind of leap off from there. And so, yeah, that's really our storyline. And unless I missed anything from your perspectives, we can kind of move to talking about the game design, gameplay, things like that, which I think is where Control really shines, in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely is its strongest running. It's the strongest point that runs throughout the whole game is its gameplay, is its consistent strength. I found the story to be while unsettling, to be engaging, and it's like it poses these interesting questions that like I want to get the answers to, so it's pushing me forward to move through the very bad vibes that it kind of made me feel throughout. But then it ultimately left me feeling unsatisfied at the end in terms of its narrative. I feel like it relied too much on the, oh, we're making a game in the new weird style that like poses more questions than it answers. And like, while I'm okay with leaving a certain level of mystery or even ending on a cliffhanger, or if it serves the narrative, I'm fine for that. But like, I just feel like there were way too many threads left hanging, and those that were wrapped in a kind of like going along with that kind of underwhelming final run that with no final boss or something like that. I felt the story ended in this unsatisfying way, where like I was just left with a lot of questions, but like not in terms of like, one of the biggest ones that like it didn't make sense to me is like, what the fuck, he's a character you didn't mention, but he's like one that plays a strong role throughout the game in its world building, but is like one of like the executive leaders, the head of research, Dr. Casper Darling. He like you engage with him through these real world live action recordings that you like will come across in the different levels, and he's explaining different things about the world, but it's clear he is a driving point of the plot as well. It's like kind of confusing you can kind of overlook it and miss it, but it's like he and the former director Trench are like directly responsible for introducing the hiss into our dimension, and they're coping.
Did he create the HRA machine?
Yeah,
as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's like he like discovered what he dubbed Hedron, which is this Polaris entity, which it's like we don't. That was another kind of overarching different aspects of questions I wish I could have gotten better answers on. It's like, what are these extra dimensional entities? You've got Polaris, you've got the hiss itself, but then the one that bothered me the most was like, what the fuck is the board? It's like apparently you get more information in that DLC, but that's something I don't like. It's like, if you're going to give information and stuff, like to hide that behind a paid DLC is something I don't like. It's like you shouldn't be tying central story stuff to add-ons, right? It should be part of the main focus. But so it's like, what the fuck are these entities? Where do they come from? What are their goals? They're just put out there as these like kind of weird things that have these goals and these a will of their own, but we're just content to leave it at that and not explore it further.
Yeah, Ben, I completely agree that that's the biggest weakness of this game is there are so many questions that it just doesn't answer, and doesn't, there's a lot of lore throughout that is in, audio logs and notes that you can find almost.
Too
There's,
many.
there's a lot in every room you're in. Absolutely, it's too many. It's too many.
Too many when it's
But
part
yeah,
of
there's just a
driving the
lot of
story.
unanswered questions, and it makes it
Too many creepy puppet videos.
right, and it makes it feel like an incomplete narrative. Oh, you're not a fan of the kids?
The threshold kids? Yeah, very creepy.
I was a fan.
Very creepy. I
Yeah, Threshold kids are very
too
creepy.
far away from myself. But one of my things again was like I started off was like Casper Darling is missing, and we don't know where he is. We don't know that if he's alive or dead. He's completely gone. I would assume that he's probably in some like other dimension, kind of like Alan Wake style. But it's like that's one of these threads that's just left completely blank. It's just like, what the fuck happened to him? We have no idea. It's just completely forgotten and waved away.
And I think you make a good point about the like extra lore in the DLC. And I think, there's a big difference of putting, tying stories together in a DLC compared to a sequel. Like, if some of this stuff was going to be explored in the sequel, that's much different than forcing people to pay for something that they already bought that's just going to add like a few story things as opposed to a whole new game. I just, that trend in general is kind of annoying to have the DLC rather than a complete sequel game, or just a complete first game that has all of the lore, the content, the story, gameplay, etc.
Yeah, and I think what we're talking about is give us something that has a full narrative. Don't separate what is the complete story via a DLC. Like if they just had wrapped up some of the main storylines neatly.
I wouldn't even say it has to be neatly. The base game, I would say that it doesn't have to be neat. It doesn't have to be neat, but
it has to be there.
But some of these things, because that does get away from what is the appeal of this kind of this genre of fiction. Because that's another thing to point out is like that, and it makes sense knowing Remedy's other their other catalog is these guys are obviously very inspired by literature. That New Weird is a literary genre, and so obviously Alan Wake, he's an author. He's an author that is
I'm Alan Wake and I'm a writer
creating reality via his fiction, right? So literary fiction is a big inspiration for them.
Yep.
And a big part of that genre is to not answer everything up. Nothing gets tied up in a neat little bow, but like there are just. It didn't feel like that even like the leaving questions unanswered. It felt like they fell off. # they fell off rather than being really highlighted and held up to the light and being like, what the fuck is this? What is going on? We don't know. Stay tuned type of thing. They don't like that. These are just fundamental questions that can't be answered. They literally just like, oh, we forgot about them.
Yeah, and I think that you don't have to have a neat tie into all the stories, but you have to give us all of the facts so that we could, or like all of the lore there, so that we could come up with the answers to these questions ourselves. Like like you said, they're just like giving you this thread that you think is Darling seems to be at the beginning of a game. You're talking about him a lot. There's a lot about the HRA device that you're learning about. You're going to his lab, et cetera, et cetera. And like you said, it's just there's nothing else about Darling. There's nothing leading us in the main the main storyline to even come up with the fact that maybe he is in another dimension. Maybe he's died by X, Y, and Z. Whatever. There's no clues there. It's just like a forgotten thread, that, late in development, they're like, oh shit, we forgot to really flesh this out. So fuck it. We'll do it later type thing.
Yeah. No, that's I think completely fair. And Ben, you did mention Twin Peaks earlier, and I just found this quick little one-liner that I thought does kind of sum up the game pretty well. And it's that, playing Control is like watching X-Files directed by David Lynch, where Dana Scully's a Jedi. and I think that's like a pretty good
perfect.
encompassing of like what this game is.
Absolutely. No, that is 100% accurate.
Like
yeah, that's perfect. I want to believe.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah, it is. It's perfect. It really was a great little just line of what this game is. And in a Lynchian way, it does ask a lot of questions that it just never comes close to answering. So I personally do really like that. The other thing that I thought was interesting in terms of their inspiration is this thing called the SCP Foundation.
Yep.
Which I'm not sure if any of you are familiar.
Very familiar.
But the SCP stands for Secure, Contain, and Protect, and it was something that started on 4chan back in 2005.
It's all just like fake creatures.
And fun little tie-in to.
So it's like cryptozoology shit.
Yeah.
It could be cryptozoology. There's one of them that my favorite. It's an IKEA. It's an IKEA that once you enter, you can't leave.
I'm seeing this here. That SCP-3008 is an IKEA store with an interior that contains a seemingly infinite labyrinthine pocket dimension. Prospective customers trapped within the endless building have formed rudimentary civilizations and must defend themselves against hostile creatures known as, some other designation, which are tall, faceless humanoids wearing IKEA employee uniforms that become violently aggressive towards all nearby human when the lights are turned off. Wasn't there like a game? Wasn't there like a game about that?
Yeah, someone made a game off that and then they had to take it down.
Yeah. Hilarious. That's awesome.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of different ones. It's actually pretty interesting. I mean, all of it coming from 4chan makes it interesting.
Of course.
Yeah. And another interesting thing about it is like the SCP stuff is always regarded as like having a really cool setting and idea, but the actual narratives of them are usually fairly lacking. So I think that's another fun little similarity here between Control and some of its.
It's all just like internet creepypasta stuff is basically the best way to.
Yeah. Exactly. But I do want to give the game some flowers here, and that's around the gameplay loop and the setting itself. I don't think I have played a game that does that does the environmental destruction so well. The way you can interact with almost everything using Jesse's powers and how it destroys the environment when you're doing it is really top notch in my opinion. I don't think I've played a game that does any of that nearly as well as Control.
I've worked in office buildings that like have similar layouts and look kind of like that.
It's too close to
like been through maintenance areas that kind of have that like that same maintenance area vibe. I'm good on traversing that in an actual setting where things are jumping out on me and not just the ones in my head that I have convinced myself in reality will jump out at me when I flip the light switch on.
Oh damn! I don't mean to completely backtrack, but the one other thing that I wanted to bring up that we mentioned that I think falls under these things that are not fully fleshed out, but it's maybe one of the better ones, but it's the character of Ati. It's like, what the fuck is Ati?
Finnish man?
It's like, he's clearly not just a weird Finnish janitor. That he is some type
Have you ever met a Finnish man who isn't like Ati?
Yeah, you have a fair point there. but it's like that he clearly has. I mean, he's the only one who's like immune to the hiss. He doesn't wear one of the Hedron protection device things, and is totally unaffected by them. But it's just clear that he is like some other entity, and I do have a theory that because it gave me enough. It gave me enough to think about what he is, that I'm more forgiving on not really them giving a firm answer on that. I think that was maybe one of the more well done mysteries. But if you'll humor me for a second, is that I think he is like a manifestation of the oldest house itself, and that he knows more about you've got multiple executives talking about that. Nobody knows more about the oldest house than Ati. He has more control over what's going on here than almost anybody else. And I like the bit where it's like everybody recognizes immediately that Jesse is the new director. I think he does as well, even though he keeps referring to her as a subordinate. Because I think it still fits in, is that she, while being kind of subservient to the board, is also basically serves the oldest house itself, and is like that she is as his assistant, and he's kind of like grooming her for the position as well. Grooming, not in the bad way. Is like doing her, is like basically like training her, and she's like, yeah, you'll be a good janitor's assistant. Is like that's kind of what the bureau itself is their janitors cleaning up all the trash of this altered world event shit. And he's like he kind of exists above and beyond the hierarchy of the oldest house, or like of the bureau itself. And so like that, in a way, she does work for him. So that's my whole theory.
I think that's probably spot on. He does initially. He's the first person Jesse interacts with upon entering the bureau.
He's the one that lets her in. He's the one that lets her in.
She's there. He lets her in and says, you're here to interview to be my apprentice, right? And so I think that is probably spot on, Ben. I would agree with you. He does seem to be some sort of manifestation of the oldest house, or something related to it at the very least. But he's probably my favorite character. I don't know if you guys had a particular favorite. I think the characters are also some of the weaker portions. You just don't get much from anyone outside of Jesse in terms of, and even hers is limited in terms of development and backstory.
What do you mean? Emily is a great expositor of narrative.
Emily Pope, yeah.
There are some characters, some of like the different not the directors, but the executives, that like you get some interesting like conversations and quips from them, but no, like like we said, no backstory. But I think
they ultimately are quest givers.
And I think that they did a decent job of writing them as quest givers, because like I said, there's like some funny little quips and making fun of Jesse for calling it the hiss and things like that were okay. But it really seems to be they want you to focus on Jesse. They want you to focus on like who the bureau is, things like that. Like those are the questions that they're worried about. Even like we keep going back to even throwing Darling out the window, or even explaining fully what Ati is. It's Jesse is like their main concern, character wise.
So I think that is probably a lot we've talked about around plot and game. I would love to hear kind of what you guys liked most in terms of gameplay, how you handled the hiss, favorite powers. I think we kind of touched on favorite service weapon mods, but would love to kind of hear what you guys thought about that. And I can open it up. I think from my perspective, the powers are all obviously way better than the Jedi games, as we've discussed. But for me, it was the throw ability.
I don't think anything is going to beat throw.
Yeah.
It's
that
incredibly
one-
strong.
No.
And it's like in terms of both how tactile it feels, like, and so how it feels to use it, but also its
Yes.
effectiveness in the game. It's the strongest ability by far.
Yeah, I think I dumped
I
most of
fully
my
maxed out. I fully
ability
maxed out
points
throw.
into
I was doing so much
it. Yeah,
damage.
and it just becomes a
I was doing
one-shot
so much
machine.
damage with throw.
And the tactile feel of it is great. It pulls, whatever you're throwing comes towards you, it accelerates, it slows down, and then you throw it, and it's really
It's got a
fun
good sound
to
design to it as
mix
well.
that in
It's got
the
a good sound
combat.
design to it as well.
Yep.
I found myself really liking levitate, and I would
Yes.
occasionally throw in a mod that like would increase your damage while levitating. So that was fun. Shield was like okay.
Yeah, I never really
It's
used
like
the
I
shield.
didn't like end up getting it upgraded enough to be able to like. There were things where it's like you can. First, it's like maybe what I got is like that it increases reload speed while you're using a shield, and the shield becomes good of when you particularly upgrade the thing. Is that when you release it, it throws shit at the enemy in front of you. So that made
Yes.
it more useful. But I never unlocked one. There's like I think one later on where it allows you to hold up a shield and shoot at the same time, and I never got to that.
Yeah, I didn't use shield very frequently.
But for me to call out a power that hasn't been mentioned yet is dodge.
Highly useful, yeah. Particularly,
Yes, the dodge
once
function's
before
Once
you
I unlocked
unlock,
that, the combat became a lot more fluid for me.
you die a lot
A
less.
lot less just finding an area that I could sit behind and pick away at things.
Yeah, but if that is highly useful before, particularly before you unlock levitate. The mind control one was like okay, takes a little too long. I used it in like one boss fight.
Taking over the Yeah, it does take some time. I definitely fell into a game loop of throw, shoot, throw. And
like
and
dudes with shield
generally enough to get me
dudes
through
with like
anything.
shields or the barriers. It's like throw to deplete the shield and then headshot, bang bang, and that was the main.
I didn't
combat
realize we
loop.
were on O block.
Yeah, no, I found the gameplay very satisfying. With like one exception of I really hated the fungus level.
Yep.
I kept dying so often to their fucking projectile things. That was not fun. So I made sure to get to clear that as soon as possible. It's got one of the tougher bosses at the end of that quest line. So that, but like, yeah, that kind of sucked. I did like how in the game from the game design, I like that it encouraged you to do more side quests, and I found the side quests to be pretty good because, like I mentioned earlier, many of the bosses in the game come from side quests. You have a few in the core game, but they're not that challenging, and they're not that they're not that big a deal. Whereas some of the actual combat challenges come mostly from these optional side quests. Because other than like one or two side quests that are tied to powers, you don't have to do any of the other ones. It's like, you get some skill points, but I don't really think you end up needing them at the end. I think you're more than powerful enough to get through the end, like the mandatory content. I don't think you really need to do any others if you don't want to, but I did find them enjoyable, and they felt fleshed out. It wasn't just like fucking fetch quests. I mean, some of them are in a way. It's like go and clear, like the ones for the containment guy, who I loved his character model, and I like the character too, but the disheveled dude with the fucking comb over, he's pretty grotesque, but like it's kind of funny. I enjoyed his character. But yeah, he like has you go out and they're effectively fetch quests, but it's like cleansing a bunch of objects of power. But those ended up still being fun because they all ended up being like kind of cool mechanical challenges, whether combat or puzzles or something like that. So I enjoyed the side quests. Like they did good enough world building, helped you explore the different areas. So the ones that tied to powers are obviously, must do's. Might as well be main quests, but they technically aren't. But all in all, I enjoyed the quest structure because even the Metroidvania aspects of it, which is a method of game design I tend not to enjoy, very toned down.
Well, the levels are very small.
Yeah, because most of it, most of the actual Metroidvania is just the clearance level is to be able to unlock certain doors with the high enough clearance level. There are a few bits where it's like, the only one that I can remember offhand is like, oh, I can't clear this gap because I don't have levitate yet. So I need to go get levitate and then come back here. That was like
levitate.
That was the one.
Well, it definitely is like toned down. It kind of put the nail in the coffin for me with Metroidvanias, and that it's just really frustrating for my mind to have to like trot backwards, and then use a shitty map. The map really pissed me off, and any Metroidvania
has a bad map. I agree.
It's the terrible map, and I need the fucking map. I need to be able to manipulate
this
the
one
map.
didn't bother me is because again, most of the things that are behind those doors are not important.
I couldn't read the map very well. I couldn't manipulate it, at least like in Fallen Order, to see the levels. And maybe you could do this, and I'm just an idiot, then I can't figure it out.
You can't manipulate it.
So
I don't think
in Fallen Order, you could
dimension.
see the different levels that you're going to. You could, manipulate it in 3D. That was like kind of helpful and made that exploring a little bit easier. But the fucking map in this, I kept like moving while I had the map open because I'm trying to move the map, but you can't fucking move the map. And it was just like creating a frustration, especially, with the having to backtrack as well. That
it's not a Metroid. It's not a Metroidvania, but just to be topical, don't play Starfield because there are no fucking maps.
Yeah, won't be doing that.
And the maps that exist are apparently terrible.
I need an Elden Ring big ass fucking map. It doesn't even have to have a lot of things on it.
Elden Ring map is very good because it's like simple enough. You can obviously go up and
zoom
down.
in and out.
It's also beautiful. The art style is also gorgeous.
Well, and that's a big thing too. Like, as a resident super neurodivergent ADD idiot over here, like.
Oh, you said divergent. I thought you said virgin. I was like, no, I'm pretty positive. I know that's not true.
Neurodivergent.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
He's a neurovirgin. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought he said nerd virgin.
His brain has been unfucked.
I wish. If that was a service I could buy, I'd do it. No, but just like
1950s asylums. Oh boy, let me tell you about this thing that we do with an ice pick.
Give me a lobotomy.
Tink.
But yeah, like I need the map to be engaging in some way and not give me frustrations, because that's just gonna do me in for the rest of the game, especially if I have with something so simple to me as a map that should be done well, all the other things that I don't like about the Metroidvania style kind of even if they are subdued in the game, objectively, for me, it just gets like highlighted and I get frustrated.
I would say
even though there's fun
it did
powers,
take me a while to get to figure out the map. It did click eventually, but it took me a while.
So it's interesting because I pretty much never opened the map.
Yeah, I didn't have to use it.
The level design and layout itself kind of points you in the direction you're supposed to go most of the time.
Sure,
they do have good signage.
I probably could have done it without the map, but the fact that I had the map there and I'm so used to, trained to use the map, It was just
I'm
frustrating.
good. I'm just saying more for
Yeah.
how I was going through the game, because like this game for me shows like it's a peak split for me, where it's like everything that you guys like. I love the Metroid styling. It's a little small, so it's a little makes it easy to run back and forth. The gunplay feels
A lot of
fun. The
fast
powers
travel.
are great. Like I am all in on the gameplay side, but the vibes of this game just drag me down so hard.
Oh yeah. No, as I said while I was playing it, is that this game made me feel very bad while I was
It's the
playing
sound
it.
design for me. The sound design was incredible.
Oh,
I didn't necessarily
That's-
mind. I didn't find like the hiss particularly scary or anything like
No.
that. It was just going through the different weird bits of the building was just very off-putting. And I mean, I think it's a success of like their utilization of like the brutalist architecture. Definitely is oppressive
Yes.
in its feelings. So I think
And the
that's
sound that
intentional,
they
right?
had really like gets your heart racing and like builds some sort of anxiety. Not even just like the gunshots themselves, which are very concussive and loud. It's just like turning a corner, you don't know, the sound is building, you don't know what's going to pop out at you, and then all
So
of a
like
sudden,
right at the very
Yeah.
beginning of the game, when you first hear the janitor, but you don't see him yet, right around the corner.
Mhm.
Like that's one of those things with the way the game was portraying to me. Like if I wasn't being forced to play this game via the podcast, I would have gone into one of the offices, saved, and my character would have been safe in that office and would never have been hurt. And I would have just left it right there. But as a testament to this game and your selection, Andrew, and your goal of this selection was to move people outside of their comfort zone and make them play things that are uncomfortable. I will, even though I have not, I will be trying to finish this game. I do intend to try to beat it.
I think it's worth it. I do think it's worth it. One, I will never stop singing the praises recently of a good shorter game. This was like 17 hours for
Yes.
me, and that was doing every base game side quest. It was enjoyable is a perhaps the wrong word. Engaging is the right one, because again, like I felt bad while I was playing it. The vibes cursed. But again, the gameplay exceptional. I had those problems that we listed a lot about the story. That was the letdown for me at the end, because it's like it's what drove me really to keep seeing it through. The core loop is fun, but I think it's worth finishing.
And I think
but if you had picked something like
it's
Resident Evil,
definitely
I don't
worth
think
finishing.
I would have been able
I
to
agree.
do it the same way.
No, I think that's fair. And this is a pretty quick game, so it is worth wrapping up. I think
You've also ruined my ability to go to
something-
my office like late at night because I forgot something there.
But I am glad to hear you guys express that, because they did say, our goal was that we didn't want to create, terrifying moments like in classic horror games, but instead creating a sense of dread for the player throughout the experience. And I think the three of you have, what you've said means they nailed it.
They absolutely did, because
that's really kind of what you've been describing.
Such a testament too, because like this is not like a horror game, right?
No.
Like, and again, I don't find the hiss to be scary or anything like that, but it's just this
high anxiety.
Yeah, it's just they really were successful.
Unsettling imagery.
Yeah.
Like the body's floating, kind of looking like they're hanging.
Yeah. You know what's a really funny piece of information I found while just doing the littlest bit of research. So like the oldest house, being an example of brutalist architecture, apparently was inspired by the old AT&T long lines building, which if you look at an image of it, it's just like it's the literal panopticon, right? Is what it's being based
You're missing
off
the
of.
real important part about that building, which is that
no windows. There's a concrete
no
building with no windows. That way the employees can't kill themselves.
WikiLeaks had pointed out that it's like a heavy NSA surveillance location.
Yes.
Yeah, I bet. And that's what I'm
'Cause
saying.
it was designed to survive bombing.
It's the literal panopticon. But it's really good.
Yeah. No, it's perfect. And they also, the development team said that they chose the brutalist structure in this corporate setting because there's this, they say and describe, and I think they nailed this as well, is an invisible assailing presence of bureaucracy in a corporate office setting that in and of itself is unsettling. Correct. And it's, they nailed it. I mean, I think they really did accomplish a lot of their goals at a pretty high level with this game. And, for me, I really enjoyed both the gameplay and while the end wasn't, necessarily narratively fulfilling, it kept me engaged in wanting to learn the answers to the questions that it poses about its universe.
One kind of like final thought from me, and like kind of it's a bit of a, I understand it's a bit of a stretch, and it's a bit of what I as the individual bring to the examination of the game. I don't necessarily know that this is something that they're directly trying to, get across in their messaging, but it's the idea of these objects of power and how they explain what they are, how they come to exist, and the effects that they have. And it's like, it's this interesting idea of that they are these mundane objects that are become imbued with this kind of reality bending potential through this like coalescing of collective human consciousness and collective human will. And like the best example was like the idea of like was the floppy disk. That was probably my favorite one because I heard them explain that one as like how up until just a few years ago, like United States missile defense like we're all run off of floppy disks. So it's like this idea
they're running like Windows XP.
So it's like the idea that the floppy disk itself then kind of coalesces into this weapon. It is the weapon, is this floppy disk. And it's like reality is both shaped by and shapes these objects, and how that kind of relationship is interplayed by what we as a collective consciousness bring to it. I think is a pretty interesting idea, and it's one that has stuck with me throughout. And it's, again, so this is something that I like this game and what that idea presents for what it makes me think, not necessarily what the game itself is saying, but what it makes me think. And so like I found myself returning to this idea kind of over and over again, and how the game doesn't present it as this kind of it's kind of liberatory potential. It's more on the opposite side, that it is the kind of dual kind of the dual side of that being it can like imprison us into this kind of reality of like primordial structure and oppression. But it has this flip side when you think about it, that it can be incredibly liberatory, that we can shape our reality at its basis level, not through our individual will, but through our collective conjoined will, that we can create a new reality if we can imagine it. And I think that is something that is pretty cool and a pretty based idea, as the kids say. And it's something that has definitely stuck with me. But like obviously they have taken the flip side of it, because this idea contains both possibilities. It can liberate us and it can imprison us. It can keep us in these kind of oppressive structures that are kind of brought to life by the brutalism that we were just kind of talking about here, and these kind of the old-fashioned kind of tech that you see involved. Like it keeps us anchored in the past, right? Because it's our consciousness is built upon our past experience, so we are kind of trapped to only envision the world by what we already know. But we must be bold enough to envision something new and that can then kind of work backwards and change reality at its core. So I think that's a cool idea, and it's something that I'm happy that I played this game just for that alone.
Ben, I think that you put my thoughts into better words than I could have with what you just said. I completely agree, and it's, we were talking about some of the issues with how they put it. But I think we talked about how the DLC had some additional, plot development, and I think Jesse realizing that the board isn't a positive force in taking the Bureau in her own direction, almost does speak to that other positive side of the storyline. And I think it is upsetting that isn't as apparent in the base game, because they definitely more focus on the imprisonment and oppression side of things with the base.
Because even at the climax of the base game, it's like she's just been like, yeah, she's accepting her role, but it's like she's just becoming part of the bureaucracy, right? She's maintaining the status quo. Yeah,
the only way to destroy the bureaucracy is to become the bureaucracy.
Yeah, Jesse Faden is lib coded.
Absolutely.
But yeah, she is radicalized in the DLC.
She's definitely up there in my video game redhead lists.
What is that with video games and redheads?
Yeah, I don't know. They're pushing an agenda.
Yeah, I never thought of it until you just said that, Matt. But literally, if you're gonna have a female character, she's got fucking red hair.
Not just females too.
There's a problem with
you got
this
Cal Kestis too. Cal Kestis is also your redhead.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a huge problem with it. I enjoy me a redhead. It's just interesting.
The ginger agenda
must be stopped.
Is, infiltrating
we must
our
hold
society.
them to account. But yeah, no, I think that's,
they are soulless, and they are trying to make us like
maybe
them.
that's why you're so worried about them rising up. They're afraid of the sunlight.
So
you just go out during the daytime, and then
you don't get the uncanniness of seeing a redhead with no life behind their eyes in a character model, because it's like, oh yeah, that's what I see every day when I pass a redhead on the street.
And they're just an
NPC.
And they don't have to use Kojima's soul sucking machine because they don't have a soul.
Mm-hmm.
So they're already a husk of.
They're immune. Yeah, they're immune.
Yeah,
that's
why. Yeah, Kojima does not have redheaded protagonists.
They're a gestalt.
Yeah.
Let's tie it back to another post episode.
I do think I will be on the lookout for the sequel, though. It'll make me feel bad when I play it some more, but I'm hopeful.
I think I need to play this game at different times, because playing this game at night on a week, after being in the office for 8 hours, going into a creepy office after leaving my office, maybe not the best thing for my mental health.
Yeah. What do you guys think they're going to make the sequel about? Because they keep talking about how the Hiss
I hope that they do a completely different genre, and then they do a stealth platformer where you play as a veterinarian.
I just hope that they do a different enemy and different. I just hope it's not the Hiss again. I hope that they do
something. It'll be the same building.
Yeah,
I hope it's a different enemy, and she calls them the Hiss anyway.
Well, I hope that they don't that they aren't stuck in the oldest house. I hope that it's you've got to go out to deal with an altered.
Yeah, what if you have to play Alan Wake 2 to understand the tie-in?
Yeah.
Oh God.
We're praising them for their
You're putting bad thoughts.
I don't think I want to do that.
Yeah, we've been praising them
Alan
for
Wake,
their lack of crunch. But they're just screwing the consumer, making you purchase all of their products.
Yeah, we've had enough of combined universes. I'm fine with things existing on their own.
Same.
But no,
I need Ratchet and Clank and Insomniac Spider-Man to be in the same shared universe. because of interdimensional rift technology.
So my hope though for a sequel is that they do something like that where it's like she's got to go out to deal with an altered world event. That would be my hope.
Yeah, I that's what I would like. Some sort of time jump. We get to see the Bureau under Jesse's true control and handling some sort of.
What if in
AWE.
Control 2 you're playing as a new
be...
character, and then the final boss is Jesse, who's become corrupt with power while running?
This is Jesse.
Oh, that could happen. That could definitely happen.
I wouldn't hate that
play
either.
As Dylan.
I mean, that's another thread that's that's left unanswered is what
you play as Trench.
Unresolved.
And that was a part of the plot. That was a part of the plot action for me as well. It's like you don't get his motivation fully, other than it's like he's mistreated by the board, or not by the board, by the Bureau.
Dylan or Trench?
Dylan, and it's like
Dylan.
He like kind of willingly opens himself up to the hiss, and it's like it's made kind of explicit that he has more agency involved, and so like that he's just trying to get revenge in some way that like I don't know, it didn't feel fully fleshed out in my opinion. But that's one of my lesser complaints. But yeah, so it's basically the payout of the narrative is what dings my score for this on this game. Otherwise, I was very, very happy with everything I came across, even the bad vibes. Yeah, like as Matt said,
bad vibes are good vibes when it comes to Control.
I do appreciate you, Andrew, for getting us to play something out of our comfort zone.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys all enjoyed this to the extent that you could. It's definitely not your preferred genres, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm happy to chat about it.
There was no group of children.
I appreciate you indulging me.
They weren't defeating God with the power of friendship.
But yeah, Matt, not interested.
There's no giant swords, buster blades for Matt to play with.
I mean, giant swords are just a general plus. Like, if I'm looking at your art and I see a man wielding a slab of iron,
I'm immediately there.
Sold. All right. Well, I think that concludes all of my notes on Control. Any other final thoughts?
I gave my final
Let the hiss
thesis.
take me.
I gave my final thesis on the game, so yeah. I'm content.
All right. Sounds peachy. So check out Control 2
whenever that comes out. Yeah, I do not think I will. Be
when that comes out.
Was that Control 2 TOO? Like you, the listener, check out Control as well.
As well.
Double entendre.
Yeah, no, I'm not particularly interested in the Alan Wake series either. But I'll be there for Control.
He's a writer.
I didn't even know he was a writer until today.
I've heard that the first one is like really just kind of like a walking simulator.
Yeah, that's
like most Microsoft exclusives.
Well.
Oh,
the hater hats are fully
perfect.
Fully on today.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to end it. Some hate for Microsoft.
All right, folks. Well, thank you, Andrew, for leading us through this. Appreciate it, as always. We've got a couple games in the works for the next couple months, and then I will get to have my revenge on all of you for making me play your games. So I think it's probably gonna be the biggest challenge for Mike. You're gonna have to sit through so many cutscenes.
What game?
We're gonna play Yakuza 0 for the month of December.
I feel like I could sit through those cutscenes because it'll be
you also have to
the rest.
You also have to read. You also have to read because it's in Japanese. It's all subtitles. The game is in Japanese.
I may not be understanding the story. Just the gameplay.
But that's the point. That's the thing is the gameplay is fine. The mini games are very fun, all that kind of stuff. But
I can't wait for these episodes. Why I'm slowly boiling Cold War between us. where each one of us steps it up.
Yeah,
It'll
see,
end
but
with me making you guys play Kingdom Hearts.
oof. But
Oh,
so
I'd
yeah,
play
that's
that.
that's
I'll be
why
on your side.
but that's why I want you guys to play Yakuza 0 is for the story. All right, but you'll have to wait several months for that. I think the next up is
Yeah,
going to
but guess
be
what? Monster Hunter.
Monster Hunter the movie coming at you next week.
Hell yeah.
Matt and I were like kind of talking about that yesterday
yeah.
while we were building the enclosure for my heat pump outside. It's just like the plot.
I'll pump you
the-
some heat.
The plot. Ooh, thank you. The plot premise for that one is like it just bothers me a lot. It's just like they're doing unnecessary timey-wimey bullshit, and it's like it's
Fantastic.
however, Ti is in it, so I'm
And Mila Jovovich.
Mila Jokovic.
Oh my
Djokovic,
god. I did not know Ti.
yeah, he's like one of her like sergeants. But yeah, Mila Jovovich can't go wrong. All right, but you'll have to wait and tune
Never.
in for that next time. In the meantime,
If you
though,
don't, then you'll never hear it because it's a limited time offer once, and that's it.
it was gone. But in the meantime, you can support us by following and subscribing to us on Twitch at twitch.tv/campaign comrades. Check out the YouTube channel. Some stuff may come out in the future. For me to make another video, I've really got to have a game that's like really speaks to me to come out there, because the effort is just like, I don't know. But we'll see what's coming out there in the future. But again, once again, thank you, Andrew. We will see you all in the next one. Bye bye.